Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Pivoted Success Podcast. I'm joined by our friend Sean Cochran from TCC Canada, and I'm Jared Goldsmith from ESAC's Virtual Events. Today, we're very pleased to be welcoming a friend to the business and entrepreneurial community in Ottawa, Dylan Black. Hello, Dylan.
Hi, guys. How is everybody doing?
Thank you so much. Now, I forgot to mention Dylan is part of Boom 99.7 and Yuck Yucks, in addition to helping out with various other communities, organizations in the city. Dylan, let's talk a little bit about your background. Who is Dylan Black and what are you all about?
Who is Dylan Black? Well, I grew up in a town called Vankleek, Ontario. And, let's fast forward a whole pile of years. I started my radio career in 1999 in Ottawa, and I've been here ever since, broadcasting on a ton of different radio stations, television as well. And my whole thing is charity, community events, and I just try to get out there as much as possible. And through good people like yourself, Jared, I've met many people through networking, and I know the importance of it. So getting out in the community and helping out, especially during these times, super important to me.
Absolutely. And we'll be getting into it later about how you help out the community so much on social media. And if somebody doesn't know Dylan Black, they haven't lived in Ottawa all that long. Dylan, let's talk a little bit about how you personally were affected by COVID, and then we'll switch over to how the business side of you was affected.
Well, personally, I mean, right out of the gate, the first thing that jumps into my head is I, like most of us, I put on some weight. So that's a personal side to it through COVID. When it began, I was bordering around, 195, 200, and now I'm around 230. And that's why I use this setup to make sure that, black shirts slim me and looking great, of course, today for this important podcast. But, I lost some employment. Through Rogers TV. I was hosting Daytime Ottawa, and because of COVID-19, it went on hiatus. Many changes through Yuck Yucks, of course. Events like your own, Jared, on hiatus, in-person events. So a lot of income lost, of course. But aside from just income, the difficult navigation of every day, just trying to stay healthy. And I have a 4-year-old, and how do you handle that, and how do you keep him safe? And it's been definitely trying times right up to this moment, right? There's COVID scares almost every day amongst people I know in the community, and we're just trying to do our best to make sure that we don't fall apart here.
Yeah. What about like other organizations and businesses that you've seen affected, Dylan? Because you've known so many people in the community over the years. What do you do when you see somebody's really struggling with their, let's say, in this case, their business or community organization because of COVID?
My goodness. What do you do, right? I'm lucky enough to say that I'm not a small business owner. I'm affiliated to Chorus Entertainment, which is Boom 99.7, and yes, Rogers TV, Rogers Communications, and the Yuck Yucks Comedy Club. But speaking of Yuck Yucks, being affiliated to them, they are moving into their 5th location within the past year, not even a year. So they're just, you want to talk about perseverance and just being able to adapt. That's just one business that I can think of off the top of my head that is pivoting, is moving all around and trying to keep alive, right? And I've seen so many. You hear all these stories about businesses going out of business, having to close up shop, having to sell what they have left. You see it every day, every week, and I'm tired of seeing it. I wish we could get to a point where things are stable or businesses could come back, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. Quite honestly, it just seems like the numbers for COVID they just don't go. It just doesn't go away.
Yeah, no kidding. It's crazy how from the beginning you thought, oh, okay, well, just a couple of weeks of lockdown, no big deal. Yeah. And here we are almost 2 years later, and it still continues on. For you, Dylan, back, let's call it March 15th, 16th, whenever they did announce the lockdown, how sudden was the shift for you professionally? Because I know a lot of people that did live events and things like that, it was pretty quick in terms of things getting sort of shut down and then canceled, right?
Well, it was almost automatic. March 23rd was the day that Daytime Ottawa, we received an email and saying that it's going to be on hiatus until further notice. And that meant until now, it's still on hiatus. So it was automatic when it came to my television position. Luckily, everything remained the same at Boom. It remained the same, but didn't. Obviously, when it comes to being in a building and broadcasting from the radio station, I've been lucky to be able to come in day after day and broadcast from our actual studio and program the music for my actual office. But a bunch of people in the building not as lucky. They've had to, or lucky depending on how you look at it. I mean, a lot of people are happy that they get to stay home, right? But I was able to come in, and I couldn't imagine being at home 7 days a week, doing my work there, and relying on technology. Someday on a good day, stuff doesn't work, in a major market radio station. Can you imagine if I'm trying to broadcast from my kitchen table, right? So, but it was automatic. The switch was just like that. The events were canceled. It was just one event after another, just gone, and almost feels like gone forever, because they still haven't come back for the most part.
Yeah.
But it was quick. It was automatic.
I mean, Dylan, prior to COVID, you would be out and about in the community, not only promoting events in person through the stations, but also attending live events. So when things closed down, how have you pivoted for success?
Well, my goodness, I've tried to pivot through the online world. You putting your name out there, still being as active as possible. I've always believed in online networking to begin with, so it wasn't new to me. It wasn't foreign. I knew that the importance of, that's why I always loved Twitter and Facebook. And way back in the day, like I was on MySpace, and I found just MySpace alone, the way you could connect with people, the way you could talk to people, MSN Messenger, for goodness sake. Like, it's so important to connect with people, and it's a way of saying hi to people, meeting people. I've made connections the past year or so with people that I've never met in real life, and now I consider them friends, and how odd is that, really, if you go back 10, 15, 20 years in time, right? So I've pivoted, but I've always sort of been there. I think the online world obviously is more important than ever. It's also a very vicious place to live, as we all know through the world of Twitter and
what we call them, the keyboard warriors.
Yeah, and even today, I mean, you get attacked daily for your views or your thoughts, and when it's for the greater good. But definitely pivoted, but I've just sort of remained, but just maybe a little stronger when it comes to networking online, and I still try to attend. Like, I've got my mask here, and I attend things safely, outdoors, indoors if I have to, and drop by many businesses, let them know that Boom is there to support them, and it's just a great way to use the platform for good, and that's what I've been about for years.
Yeah, so for you guys, in terms of technology, I mean, I guess the technological shift wasn't that massive for you because you were able to come back into the office and work from there. But some of the other people that were less lucky, was there a struggle internally in terms of being able to flip that switch to online instead of in person?
Well, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I can't speak on behalf of others, but I see that it would be a little difficult to just sort of, everything you're doing is from your laptop, right? And there's going to be issues daily. I'm not a very technologically savvy guy myself. I mean, I make it look like I am, but when it comes to why does this work or why does it not work, I would be quite frustrated if things weren't working on a daily basis. But I've heard from some of my colleagues. I mean, they're tired of looking at their computer screens all day. They're tired of having meetings like this without seeing each other. So some people, it's more of a challenge. For me, I'm a little bit of an introvert, believe it or not. So it's okay for me to perhaps be alone in the office all day, because I'm inundated with people sometimes through my career and events and stuff like that. So it's okay, but I can see how it can be a little isolating, and you're secluded or in your area, and if you don't go into work, like I get to go into work 5 days a week, like I can't imagine just setting up shop at my kitchen table, like I said, and just being there 7 days a week. It would be difficult.
Yeah, no kidding. So for Dylan, there's one other thing I wanted to ask you about. I mean, obviously from the radio perspective, you've done well at keeping things on an even keel. But with Yuck Yucks, for example, I mean, I imagine they've been unable to hold shows for a very long time. So you mentioned that they were expanding, so that's pretty exciting. Have they started holding shows again, and are you performing live again?
Yeah, so my role is behind the scenes at Yuck Yucks. I'm not like a comedian or anything, but they have, gone through long stretches of not being open, obviously with the shutdowns, and then when they have been open, there's been all these restrictions. And as I mentioned, they're coming into their 5th location in a year, because what's happening there is they were, I guess for better choice of words, evicted from where they were, their legendary spot on Elgin Street, because it was owned by another person. And my understanding is that person or the building, he basically said, I'm closing up shop, everybody out, including Yuck Yucks. So they had to move to Dallas Lake. And basically, when they move to these locations, they're just creating these relationships with other business owners. And they're not really setting up shop in the traditional sense. They're they're just sort of jumping on board with whatever's happening there already. So they can't make it their own. When they were done with Dallas Lake, they went to Trattoria, a restaurant on Preston. When they were done there, Live on Elgin. But Live on Elgin, as you know, has their own shows to put on. So now they're moving to the Marriott Hotel on Kent. Now, the reason why they can't have a permanent location is because of COVID, because they only are allowed to have 36, 50 seats per show. You can't make money. You can't pay $10,000 in rent per month. So they're just sort of jumping on to wherever until COVID's done. And then once COVID's done, perhaps they can, set up shop somewhere permanently.
It's so sad to see for an organization like that that's been around for so long in this community too. And I mean, more than ever, I think people need a good chuckle since everything's so doom and gloom. So I love the resourcefulness to be able to sort of keep it flexible and move around as they can until they can get back to actually holding proper events again. So I'm hopeful that next year we should be able to see more of that. But who's to say? How many times have we said that, right?
I know, and what a challenge. I mean, even today, the marketing campaign has begun for their new location. So every time you think that Yuck Yucks is in a certain spot, you have to figure out, no, they're not there anymore. You have to go to this location, that location, this location. So it's got to be a challenge because obviously there are owners, there are workers. They've been put out of work temporarily and they go back to work temporarily. And how do you make a steady income, right? So. And that's just that's the business that I'm associated with. But, you see this with so many businesses in the city to the point that many of them are going out of business completely, which is sad and terrible.
But you know what, as scary as that is, that leads us well into our next question is, how have you helped others to adapt? We see you often on social media. You have your sponsor or shout out Saturdays for small business. Can you talk a little bit about how you've helped people to adapt?
Well, so I go back to social media, right? And we always talk about supporting local, but the reality is, and myself included, I make a broadcasting salary, and it's not like I'm not rich by any means, and so I can't support as many places as I'd like to financially. But if you do have a social media platform and you have a voice, talk about those businesses, talk about them, get people to share stuff, take pictures. Post pictures, do what you can, right? But through Boom, I've been very lucky that they allowed me to create something called Shout Out Saturday, as you mentioned. And it happens on Boom on Saturday mornings from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And basically, if you have a small business, we will mention you. And we have a very strong listenership. There's no charge to this. We just want to help. So no matter what your business is, we will mention you on air, and I've heard from many businesses that it's helped create business for them, and it makes me feel really good. It's a very busy morning on Saturdays because a lot of submissions come. It's good and bad. A lot of submissions come in because the need is there. But and I will just rhyme off as many as I possibly can, short blurbs, perhaps if it's available, and hopefully it helps drum up some business for some folks.
Yeah, you touched on many important points, one of which was, if you can't buy or purchase from an organization or a small business, mention them, do a testimonial, shout out on their own platforms.
Yeah.
But most people don't. And I'm struggling to understand why that is.
I think it's just maybe a lack of misunderstanding. They don't know that they can do that or that they should do that, or it's something that could help. I think through my teachings of being in media over the past coming up to 25 years next year, since I started my media career, a quarter of a century, I just know that this, social media and the importance of sharing and the importance of how you make your posts, that's what will get people eyeballs on them, right? So through podcasts like this, it gets the word out. That's so important to mention other people on your social media. Like it's not a hard thing to do. You're on your phone anyway, looking at social media. You may as well, like, once a day, talk about your favorite business. And I think the more people that get that and use social media for positive forces instead of negative, perhaps a lot of businesses could be helped out, I think, anyway.
I think sadly a lot of people don't realize the amount of value something as simple as a quick post can be. Because you just you churn through so much in a day. It just, what's the difference? What's one extra post? But for small businesses, they could make a massive difference. And if you have 5, 10, 15 people doing that, a really big difference. So, it's just the little things that we can all do to help each other and just show that we're here for each other, because this is tough for everybody, right?
Totally agree. And, like through Jared's events, and I think I've mentioned this a bunch of times when I'm seeing them, is say there's 200 people there. And if those 200 people made a post, and I know Jared knows this because he's all about social media at ESACs, 200 people, say everybody has 500, 1,000 friends. If everybody in that room made a post and all their friends saw that, and then their friends saw that, you could hit thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. That might be a little bit much, but if people just shared, it's so important. I've done events where there's 10 people. Well, if you're there to network, get this online, tag me, tag your friend, tag who the person you're sitting with beside, and they'll share it and it'll spread around. That's why you're here.
Absolutely. That's really, really important. Now, Dylan, what are you most excited about? Let's talk maybe 6 months to a year down the road. It could be personal, business, whatever you feel like talking about.
Well, I do have a 4-year-old, and his name is Maxwell, and he's the absolute love of my life. And I'm excited to, recently he's got into wanting to go to the Halloween store. This is just popping into my head, like one of the things that I'm excited about. He has to wear a mask, and he's afraid, don't touch this, don't put on masks. Who knows who's put that on before? Look out for this person. Look out for, don't get too close. We go to the playground, right? And there's kids everywhere, and kids are kids. And kids will be kids, and they don't know enough to stay away from each other. But you're constantly reminding, stay away, keep your distance. I want him to be free. I want him to not remember this stuff. I want him to be a kid like we were, right? And just run around the store and don't worry about masks, and don't worry about covering your, it keeps falling off his little nose, and I keep reminding him. I just want it to be normal again. Like the pandemic slowed me down quite a bit. And I think I needed that because I was working 7 days a week. So yes, I want it to be a new normal. Maybe I don't want it to go back to the craziness that we had before. I like the fact that I didn't get a cold this past winter because I was wearing a mask. There was the washing the hands. So I hope we've learned a lot of lessons. I want things to get back to normal, but I want them to get back to a normal where things are even better, perhaps, where my little boy can run around and not worry about being close to his friends, not worry about contacting a virus in school. It's crazy.
What do you think about the generation of children these days? Do you think it's going to have lasting effects because of COVID?
It's really hard to say. If anything, I think maybe in a good way. Through what I've just mentioned, I think, not only children, but adults, like we've all learned a lot of lessons through this. And it's funny because at the beginning, I found that we were all a lot nicer to each other because we were all sort of maybe we were realizing that life is fragile but now we're getting a little more, I think, just angry because it's going on so long. And there's all the conspiracy theories and there's all this stuff. But I hope our kids learn valuable lessons from this that perhaps they may not have learned without this happening. So I'm hoping the world's a better place in a year or two from now. I truly, truly am. But I'm also skeptical too, right? Because the world is a crazy place. So let's hope for the best.
Would you like to ask something, Sean?
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of returning to normal, I love the idea that, yeah, we can hopefully get back to what was normal, but make adjustments. I think, like you said, in the beginning of the pandemic, I'd like to think we're thinking about each other a bit more than we normally would. Whereas I think people get really focused in their own sort of life and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of the messaging was, we're doing this for everyone, which was kind of the first time in my life anyway, where we've really as together been, we need to do this and this is why. So I hope that we can build a lot of that back into this as we sort of hopefully get over this pandemic and out on the other side of it all.
Mm-hmm. I hope so. I just, and you've seen crowds come back, especially in the United States. You've seen crowds of thousands and thousands here in Ottawa with the, Red Blacks games and upcoming Senators games. And, but the vaccine passport is a thing. A lot of people are fighting that. Myself personally, will I go back to that lifestyle before where you're sort of all sardined in? I hope I'll be comfortable enough, but then at the same time, like I was mentioning, the lessons that we've learned, perhaps I'll have to pick and choose the events that I say yes to, because I need to feel safe. And like I go back to little Max, he's not vaccinated, right? He's 4 years old, and it's where I go, I have to think of him, because the next day he's going to be jumping on me and I'm going to be breathing on him, and I've got to be careful. It's not just about me. It's not just about my vaccination status. It's about his life and his health.
Yeah. I mean, now that Max is getting a bit older, Dylan, like, what does your personal future hold?
Sorry, what is my personal future hold?
Personal future, yeah. Like you were talking a little bit about, you're going to have to pick and choose the events you attend, but
I don't know. Like it's a good question, because I'm kind of not there yet, right? I mean, things have opened up, but they haven't opened up. Like next time there's an ESACs, let's say, right, an in-person ESACs, if you decide to hold those again, I definitely need parking. That's number one for all events. No, but I mean, it's so hard to say. I have had an opportunity to be invited to a number of things. I'm very grateful when people invite me, they think of me, but I've had to say no. Because now it's difficult for me to give up full evenings. It's difficult for me to drive to the other side of town or this and that after my long work day. And I have to think about my time with Max. I have to think about my time with friends. And I know, Jared, you've fallen victim to this as well, because you've asked me to do things. And it's hard for me to fit stuff in because life is thankfully busy. But what will it be like? There was an opportunity for me to possibly go to the fall festival edition of RBC Blues Fest next weekend, and I was on the fence about it. Not saying that it's not safe, but there's still 5,000 people there, and I've got to think about my little boy. I've got to think about my own health.
Yeah, well, so, Sean also has a newborn. Or how old now, Sean?
She's 3 now, but still feels like a newborn. But no, I don't know. It's one of those things, because I mean, it's not like we talk about things reopening and things being more normal, but realistically, they're not normal yet, because the risk is still there. It's maybe lesser, especially if you're vaccinated and so on, but it's not gone. So it's not like you can just switch this off and be like, well, I can go to that big group because who cares? And I think even when we're on the other side of this, I think people are going to think twice now about like, well, I don't really want a cold or a flu or something. And if I'm jammed in with all these people, it's pretty likely. Because like, honestly, I never thought about that before. I never thought being in a really small enclosed environment that would get me sick, but of course it could. So
yeah, and I think people have sort of now set in their ways. They're either busting and they want to do stuff, so everybody's going to go crazy, or if you're like me, now I realize, like I prefer to save money. I prefer to be at home watching Star Wars. I prefer to, yeah, exactly. Like it just feels safer. And at the end of the day, I've saved some cash, but I also want to be able to get out there and support people and continue to network, as I was talking about before, because that's so super important in my business. And I think any business, quite honestly. So when things are finally open, I think I will still be the same. I think I'll be a little different, actually. If I can change my mind mid-sentence there, I think I won't. I don't think I'll take on as much, quite honestly. I think that I've sort of enjoyed, for a better choice of words, the last 18 months, meaning like it's been a little quieter, and I've slowed down a little bit, and I think I've reevaluated what's most important to me.
That's really wise. And I hope that most people would realize this, that they might have more time on their hands to actually, put the things on your wish list to get done. Clean your garage, clean your basement, just do something for yourself without perhaps the phone ringing or having to go across town for an event, and spending more time with your family. That's very, very wise.
Yeah.
I like that to you, Jared, something for yourself is cleaning your garage. So, I mean, that's good. That's a really good thing to do for yourself. But
I've seen it. It needs a few pandemics for
to get to that point. Dylan, we talked a lot about a lot of great things, but if you could impart some words of wisdom for others, keeping in mind that the demographic is mostly small businesses, entrepreneurs on the podcast, what would be some words of wisdom for you?
Well, personally, business aside, I mean, I think staying healthy throughout this whole thing is just number one. I'm trying, like, I have put on that weight, but I also realize, the importance of taking walks and the importance of trying to eat healthy, and because you're mentally, you'll just feel a lot better, right? So you can get through this. As far as businesses are concerned, I mean, if you can hang on, because, in the words of Howard Wagman, who does own Yuck Yucks, he believes, and the reason why he keeps pivoting, I like to use that word, it's like a movie when they say the name of the title, of the movie.
Yeah, it's like a podcast or something.
Yeah. He continues to pivot because he thinks once things are better, the club is going to thrive like it's never thrived before. So I'm hoping that a lot of businesses, if they can hang on, that at the end of this, the pot of gold, at the end of this rainbow, or whatever you want to call this, at the end of the storm, there's a pot of gold, and businesses will thrive more than ever, and dreams will continue to come true. So I hope that for everybody, and that's why I'm trying to do my part in whatever way possible to support and just to try to be there for friends and strangers and whoever reaches out to me. So I hope people can hang on.
Yeah. Well, we only have a few more minutes here. Sean, do you have any last minute thoughts?
No, I really appreciate you joining us, Dylan. I mean, it's nice to hear a perspective. I know your life still has business elements to it, but from the sort of more public facing side of everything. So it's interesting to see how things change for you and how you were able to sort of pivot, so to speak, and handle it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been, it's still a work in progress. And when this all began, like you said, we all thought it was going to be a couple of weeks. And here we are, week number 3,000. And it just seems like it's, and I don't try to be negative. I'm just more of a realist, right? I mean, the numbers are still there. And it's just, there's scares every day I get scares from different friends who say they need to go for tests. And, so it's a scary thing. It's, the fact that my son needs to wear that mask when he's looking in a Halloween store, like it's not normal, right? And I just, my goodness, this needs to get better so we can all just continue with our lives.
Dylan, the community is so happy and pleased that you're here to actually offer your support. So keep up the great work, because it's people like you who help other people stay in business. So thank you for everything you do.
But if I didn't have this platform through radio, TV, the comedy club, but through amazing friends like yourself, I wouldn't be able to say the things that I want to say and or help in the ways that I do. So thank you for your continued support. Jared, you've been one of my greatest supporters for 6, 7, 8 years now. And I can't thank you enough for all you do. So,
well, thank you, Dylan. Now, Dylan, how could somebody get in touch with you? If, let's say, they would like you to do a shout out for them, how can they reach you?
It's very simple. I mean, I'm all over social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Like I'm there, right? And those are ways to find me. I'm addicted to my phone, absolutely addicted. That's a problem for sure. But email Dylan@boom997.com is a good way to contact me, of course, through the website. But I check all platforms continuously. So if I don't respond to you, I've either already muted you because you've been rude to me, or I haven't gotten it. So I've muted a few people recently. I'm very, very easy, very approachable, it's not hard to get a hold of me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Dylan. And today on the Pivoted Success podcast, hosted by Sean Cochran from TCC Canada, myself, Jared Goldsmith from ESAC's virtual events. We were very pleased to be joined by Dylan Black from Boom 99.7 and Yuck Yucks Ottawa. Thank you very much, Dylan.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate this opportunity. Have a good day.